Learn to be super successful. Subscribe to my channel, Meathead. Every December, normally they start about Thanksgiving though. But we didn't have so many for Thanksgiving this year. I don't know why. Maybe they weren't giving thanks. I have no idea. But a couple of them I'm chairman of, unfortunately, and they should know better. And one of the doctors said, not all, he said all, he didn't mean all the points we agreed, credit committee, pre-term sheet out, they've gone back on. I scanned it, they went back on 3. One, they want the board to sign a non-compete for 3 years. That's virtually unheard of. Absolutely, in 51 and a half years, I've never seen that. Where the board's got to sign a fucking non-compete to get a fucking chicken shit loan for $6 million. But the guy's desperate. He's like you. He'd let you fuck his mother in the mouth for the last breath she had of air. That's where he is now. Second thing, they say it's a tax event. Buying this $6 million piece of shit in Colorado, whatever it is. And they want us to put the board to put up a fund so the banks doesn't have some sort of figment of their imagination tax liability. I don't even know what that is. That's unheard of. I've never heard of that before. In Colorado, it's kind of weird now that they all smoke weed, but I mean, that's impossible. Okay? And the third thing was they wanted the doc in the deal to sign his existing practices over as collateral. Out of the blue. And most people will sign all this because they're desperate. There is a webinar from Jason Nagy from a couple of years ago where he says basically banks are crooks. That's more or less a direct quote. And he's right. If you let him. Nobody's got a gun to these kids' heads to sign this shit. But some of them have been out in the field 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, 8 years, 9 years. No deal. So after 8 or 9 years, you start to begin to think, well, fuck, maybe I am a worthless piece of shit like the old man said. I could have saved him 8.5 years. Because you'll do anything. The longer you work at it without a deal, the more you'll reduce your morality, your humanity. Remember, the 2 longest deals we've ever had in this program are 12 and 13 years. Both Germanic. 1 German, 1 Austrian. Just imagine what those people were thinking. Some of you are on your way to, they better watch out because we got some boys here that are going to pass you. Just imagine after 12 and 13 fucking years. Whereas on the other end of the Germanic continuum, superstars. But most Germans, Germanic species, or whatever you want to call them, are too careful. They don't make mistakes. Well, 12 and 13 years is I think, a little overkill. But getting back to the emails I just read, so needless to say, these are emergency calls. Even the guys that never came to the seminar. I don't answer emergency calls. Ever. Emergency is, I can't even envisage, as they say here, any emergency you could ever have that I would answer your call. Your chairman stole the deal at the goal line. That's not an emergency. That's your stupidity. We've had that too. Now, I think those are kind of funny, as Sally would say. Now, I have a distorted sense of humor, admittedly, for sure. But I think, if right at the goal line, that means at the board meeting. Remember, right at the board meeting, you're waiting to have a board meeting to discuss the deals and give the stock away and all the bullshit, right? Right there, he goes, like the Flash in the movie, whoa! and he runs out the door, and half the board follow him. I think that's pretty funny. And if you're that fucking stupid, you deserve to get fucked. And the people that taught me, the icons, if you're that fucking stupid, Danny, you deserve to get fucked. I was never that fucking stupid. I've had some deals stolen from me. So now these guys are wandering around on Christmas Eve. Well, these emails came in like 2, 3, 4 in the morning. So it's not Christmas Eve where they are, but it is Christmas Eve here. It doesn't make any shit to me, but the kids, and I used to, 25 years ago, I felt sorry for them. As much sorrow as I can feel, which isn't too much, but I mean, as much, I felt for them. In the last, I don't feel anything now, but I used to feel sorry for them. And then I feel sorry if they were a kid. And if for some reason I took them under my wing, I tried to help them along, and then they fucked up. I don't feel that way anymore. And I feel that I was stupid to take them under my wing. That's what I feel now. How could you be so fucking gullible, man? This has gotten exactly zero coverage in the newspapers, online. Not zero, but almost zero. Elon Musk, which is obviously, he's just about the number one flavor of the day right now. He's if he's not one, he's number 2, right? He's the flavor of the day. Tesla and SpaceX CEO Elon Musk says wokeness, and I'm not really sure I even understand really the true definition of wokeness, and political correctness is arguably one of the biggest threats to modern civilization. I say it is the biggest threat. Now, a lot of the big guys think that. He's one of the only, because he's outspoken as hell, as we all know, right? He got fined by the SEC for $25 million 2, 3 years ago because he said something. His stock would have been delisted if it would have been me. He just got fined $25 million fine to Elon Musk is like taking a shit. And that means nothing. If you're constipated, taking a shit, and as you get older, it's harder to take a shit. I just want to tell you that. Not for me. I'm not constipated. All my buddies my age are all constipated. They can't get it up, and they can't take a shit. Can you just imagine the combustion? I don't know exactly the right word to describe your innards, but I don't suffer from that. And I posted about 2 weeks ago, I had my 5th colonoscopy. 5th. And I posted on the social media, I said, the doctor, it was done here in Scotland at 9 Wells, and a cute little doctor, about 5 feet tall. And they had 3 or 4 nurses, most of which were Filipinos in there. And I told her the story, which is a true story. The first colonoscopy I ever had, I was in my 40s. When you're after 50, you're supposed to have one every 10 years. Well, I've had 5. And in my 40s, I was in Beverly Hills, and the doctor called in the staff, and this is all online. The staff, they said, Dr. So-and-so, nurse so-and-so, I want you to see something. And there was 6 or 8 people around because I was awake, and you watch it on a TV camera as the thing goes up your colon and up into your stomach. And he says, this is what a perfect asshole looks like. As God is my witness. And I told the little doc that was putting the tube up my ass, and she started laughing. In fact, she twitched a little, Then I was sorry I told her. But I've had 5 colonoscopies, and my innards look like a baby's innards. Still, as much as I've abused myself, of course, the doctors say, just imagine if you know how they say, lighten up my heavy tone and I could rule the world. But I don't want to lighten my tone at all. Just imagine if you didn't beat your fucking body to death. You'd live to 140, 150. I'm going to live to 120 anyway, beat myself to death. And as my dad, who died at 91, and his older brother died 30 months, lived 30 months longer, 94. And his older brother died before my dad. And my dad drank. He smoked 6 packs a day, between 4 and 6 packs of cigarettes a day, till he was 84. He drank a 5th of whiskey, minimum, and 2 or 3 bottles of wine a day from the time he was 18 till he was 88. His brother, Larry Peña, my uncle, who's gone now, never smoked a cigarette or drank a drip of whiskey or wine. And he lived 30 months longer. 30. Needless to say, you can make the choice. My dad made the right choice. And my dad never did a push-up when he didn't make the Olympics in 1932 or 36. He was an alternate. From that day forward, he never did a push-up. He never ran more than to the bar. And he was an all-American athlete who, when he didn't make the Olympic team, that was his last physical exercise ever. So we have good genes. My aunts lived to 101, 102, 103. Elon Musk. Now, why isn't this more publicized? Obvious reasons. He said also, which I didn't post, they want to get him for an interview with Lemon, the guy on Lemon on CNN. And he said, I'm not that desperate. How come it never gets... Am I the only motherfucker that sees this shit? I must have a special, what do you call that shit, that feed or... There are other people that think the world's fucked. There are other people that think, we're past it. But they don't talk about it. What's the first rule of crisis management? Lie. Going back before the Romans. The first rule of crisis management is lie. There's a great scene in the Officer and a Gentleman by Jack Nicholson. He said, you can't stand the truth. Because you can't. Or as they would say in this part of the world, you can't. They can't speak English up here. But the Romans didn't beat the Picts, but they can't speak English. And they still can't speak English up here. Okay, but make Angus great again. We've ordered, I'm exaggerating now, 42 million of these, along with poster boards. I mean, come the new year, you can't go down the motherfucking street without seeing my goddamn face. And I'll be the only one, since they started voting here, some people still say they can't read and write up here, that started their campaigns 2.5 years before the fucking election. But I may not win, but it's not because they didn't know me. Getting back to Elon. Why? I want to comment. Why Steve Jobs thought we were past it before he died. Hawking said we're past in 2004. Now, these are some of the brightest, gifted people that ever were put on the planet. We're not talking about you. You and your... I had a nightmare about your princes, the royal families. I won't tell... you don't want to know what I saw them doing to you. Why? That's exactly right. Media control. But who controls the media? Normally the liberal faction. Fox is an exception to that. I don't even consider Fox News or conservative news. They say it's on the conservative end. The guys that I know, and I don't hang with anybody, the guys that I talk to think Fox is liberal. That's one of the reasons they lost their the channels here in Britain 2-3 years ago. There was only 61,000 people that watched Fox News in all of the UK. And so they gave up the franchise, or whatever the right word is. Do they have Fox in Australia? Yeah. Last night you saw the movie. Which one? Pardon? Yeah, Andrew. And my namesakes, and it's part of my manifesto for those of, don't read it, but for those of you that might have seen it, my business virtual mentor is Andrew Carnegie. My political virtual mentor is Churchill, Winston. Not my dogs. One dog is named, we got him a name, Sir Winston. We bought him a title. He's Sir Winston. And the other dog is Churchill. Because we haven't had any real politicians in Britain, in my opinion, in 70 plus years that have any balls. So the wokeness and the PC started when the second time they threw out Churchill. Just like they threw out Maggie Thatcher was along those same lines. But no good deed goes unpunished. Maggie Thatcher saved the country from bankruptcy, saved the Bank of England from going down the toilet, and they tossed her out on her old flabby ass. Churchill, similar from World War II, although they brought him back once. So you saw Carnegie. Now, most of you should know about Carnegie from the first seminar, but any comments, takeaways from Mr. Carnegie? Okay.
Hi, Mr. Peña. Good morning. Well, basically, the level of ruthlessness and competition between those top hitters, it's pretty intense.
It's definitive. I mean, they don't fuck around, as opposed to you guys, or not just you guys. I mean, the current generations. Since I've been giving the seminar 28 and a half years, and I've told you the toughest guys were in the 90s and the early 2000s, and then the last generation, which is 20 years, has been, I won't say dog meat, but I mean, because we've got a lot of great students. But compared to when Dan Locke came back to the seminar, I don't know, 10 years ago or 8 years ago, whenever it was, 5 years ago, and Whipple and these guys came back, Dan said, the only thing you don't do, Dan, now is do the deal for them. Because when they went through, there was no webinars, there was no USPs, there was no nothing. Nothing. There was no homework, fuck all. They swap bodily fluids, sex, no drugs that I know of. Sex, drugs, and fucking rock and roll. We used to watch the sun come up from the snooker room. Hangovers, Bloody Marys for breakfast. And I'm sure there was drugs. I didn't do any. But it was sex, drugs, and rock and roll from 1993 to 2002. And then they left and they just went out and took care of business. Now, because it's the DNA that's changed. And you can't change DNA in a generation. So when I say that, I'm saying something really powerful for you morons that don't understand genetics. It's impossible to change DNA in a generation. It's not possible. But I've seen it with my own eyes. I've seen it with my own eyes. And they were just hungry. And you're right, they were ruthless. And when Carnegie was having people killed, etc., and they were trying to unionize, yada, 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 he came to Europe and he visited the Queen and he did some shit, and he was here. But, as I said the first night, it's not by accident. With all the good he did with his money, who was, in my judgment, the first motivated seller in the world? Andrew Carnegie, when he sold to J.P. Morgan. Andrew, and he was trying to make up for his sins. He has not one title, not one award from the king or the queen, Queen Victoria back then, or the king, because he died in 1919. Now, isn't that remarkable? Not one motherfucking, bless you, not even one, yes, sir.
Is that because, as my dad used to say, people tend to look at the bad but not the good? You can do all good things, but one bad thing, and
he didn't do any good thing until he died. His money was left $400 and some odd million, which in today's money is a lot more than that. And but you can't go 15, 20 miles south of here. I don't know if that's south or not. I think that's west, so that's east, so that's south. You can't go 15, 20 miles south of here without seeing his name and where he was born, etc. And of course, he gave a lot of money in the United States. Carnegie Mellon University, etc. But he did a lot of ugly shit. They didn't get, no awards. Not an OBE, MBE, no barren shit, nothing. Just think of that. But nobody, not last birthday, but my 75th birthday, Sally was kind enough to take me to Skibo Castle, Carnegie Estate, for my birthday during Corona. And that estate is not like this estate. This estate is well manicured, every acre. They're not. Anyway, it's not the same. But it was amazing when you talk to the administrator, of course, and then when you go to America and you talk to the administrator of the Carnegie Trust, they've got all kind of reasons. But the bottom line is you got nothing. Now, another interesting thing, and there's a bunch of this online, there's a book written about it, that Think and Grow Rich is not based on an interview with Andrew Carnegie by Napoleon Hill. It's a fraud. He never met Napoleon Hill. Now, the other side of it is, why would a 19-year-old spend a weekend with a 65-year-old man? A 3-day weekend. And he wasn't even Muslim.
I mean, we do that here.
19-year-old? Well, yeah, but
but
you're not spending the weekend with me. Okay? You're not spending the weekend with me. And if Sally, well, I don't have breakfast with you, I don't have lunch with you, I wish I didn't have to have dinner with you. But Sally said that, for the much money as you pay, they should be able to at least look at me at dinner. I don't sit with everybody. And now I even like it better because you're all spread out. If Corona gets bad enough, then I'll just sit up here and have dinner, and you guys sit over there. So any other comments other than he was a ruthless guy? There's no question about that. But at the castle, Skibo Castle, the one thing you don't notice unless you look for it is the door handles are all, instead of where a normal door handle would be on a door, the door handles are about a foot lower because he was short. And we stayed in his daughter's suite, which adjoined his suite. I asked, where was Mrs. Carnegie's suite? Everybody looks around. You need I'm exaggerating now, you need a long-range bomber with refueling capability to find his fucking wife's suite. Success leaves clues. She was on the ass end of the castle looking up at a mound of dirt. And his suite was on the corner, and his daughter's suite was adjoined to his suite. And they're about the same size. The old man's suite was a little bigger. But when we were there, it was, this is online. We ate in the library one night. We ate here one night. And service was very good. There was only about, 6 or 8 people staying at the place. Because it is expensive. Yes, sir.
Takeaway for me, doesn't matter they are in different industries. They still compete with each other. They compete for power. They compete for being the best.
Yeah. And when I just told you the first real registered motivated seller on the planet was Andrew Carnegie, you looked at me like I would have thought that you would have figured that out, but you didn't. But most of the stuff I think you're going to figure out, you don't. So I'm not sure if it's inductive or deductive logic. There's something lacking. All the synapses aren't firing like they did 25 years ago in humanity. They're just not. But as Dan said, the only thing you don't do, Dan, and then Whipple said something to the effect, or not Whipple, Dan said, and if you bought them a deal, they'd fuck it up anyway. Because there's a lack of hunger. I don't mean, food hunger. Okay, YouTube, goodbye.